teachers raises to 5%, or maybe a different subgroup that we're looking at, maybe IAs that work with special education students. Maybe we want to give them a bigger bump. So it is all contingent upon state funding. But I would say, if you don't give the raise now, then this money stays within this budget. There's other things we can spend and probably some other physical needs we can do, or it rolls and you can send it back to the local government. But then next year, all these people are still at their current salary, and then we still have to ask for that 2%. And then we're still doing what Vicky's saying. We're still then deciding, okay, can we afford this or can we afford that, which is a higher priority. And doing this now gets money in our employees' pocket who have helped us through the pandemic for 6 months. And then it does guarantee them that money into next year, and it does lessen our choices as we move forward. But our factoring in that was looking at the positions that we know we're not going to fill, and the fact that we do have CARES money to help us in those critical areas that we need. That's our analysis and our recommendation.
I know you've begun working on the budget for next year. I know that process starts in November. Mm-hmm. Now, are we talking about another 2% raise in the next budget, or just steps up? Because that would, if we're doing a 2% now, to do another 2% in August, that's a lot of money. I'm just wondering what your thought process is long term.
So, depending what the state does, again, whether they hold us harmless, if they held us harmless, there would be a possibility of looking at 2%, but I would not guarantee 2% next year, and for two factors. One, because of that, and one, for what you've shared with us. There are decisions we may want to make to not give that. But that's why I think the value of giving it now is they get an increase for these 6 months, and that carries on into next year for them, and they may not get the 2%.
Do you see in the budget next year being doable to maybe not do a COLA, but to do the step increases for everybody without it being as detrimental as doing a 2% now and a 2% for everyone with a step increase in August? Or in July or whenever.
Can you repeat that for me?
Sure, sorry, in my head it was maybe a lot clearer. So we're talking about a 2% for everybody.
Right.
Not necessarily a step increase at this point. I'm talking about what would be the difference when you're doing the budget. I'd like to see what the difference is between doing a 2% and then just doing a step increase. Like, instead of it being a COLA across the board with a step increase versus just moving everyone up a step. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so teachers are on a step. And so even that, so say you wanted to give you couldn't give a 2% and you wanted to give maybe a 1% COLA. Then what we would do is take that teacher scale and we would move them the step, and instead of it staying the same like you saw this year, going down that angle would be 1%. So you could do things like that. And for all the rest of the employees, you just take the existing employee's salary or hourly wage and apply the percent, whether it's 1% COLA or whether it's 2%.
I know recently we did, I believe last year, December, we voted to fix the admin scale. Mm-hmm. When doing that, there were very large raises in that field. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, not that they don't work hard or anything like that. It's just there were large raises given in December. Some people didn't get large raises because they were right on the scale. And some people got very sizable raises. Mm-hmm. And so I'm also thinking about that when you're doing a 2% across the board. And I may be the only one thinking that, but anyone else can chime in on that. It just seems like there's a lot. It's just a lot in about a year. to give, let's say someone on one of those scales got, because a 2% at $100,000 is a lot more than a 2% for $20,000 or $40,000. So that's in my thought process too. I'm just trying to be really clear of what I'm thinking and how I'm thinking, so there's no mystery. That's how I roll.
Right. If I can speak to that point. So that was 2 years ago. And again, that was one of the things to fix. And in some of the things, the 10% raise for aides was a huge amount of money individually for some people. As we fixed secretaries, some secretaries got $6,000 raises. So I don't want to get caught up in that more. I want to get caught up into they're at the median of what this area is. And so if they're going to keep moving forward, then we need to give everyone, at this point now that we have it fixed, a cost of living so that they all keep moving. Otherwise, the message we're sending to administrators is you got a big raise, but don't expect another raise anytime soon because you got a big raise. And that wasn't the point. The point was to be at the median, to be competitive. And from that point, we want all of our employees moving, all of our employee groups, now that we have them there, to be moving forward together.
I mean, I voted for every raise that you've put forward since I've been on the board. I'm not anti-raise. Every raise you have put forth in front of me, I have approved. I'm just worried about the unknowns we have coming in the fall next year. If this vaccine gets out, people are able to get vaccinated, you're going to have higher volumes in school. A lot of people, our kindergarten is going to be booming because a lot of people held their kid back a year from kindergarten. A lot of people who are homeschooling for the year. A lot of people who are virtual, plan on going back to school. And so I'm concerned about the long-term ramifications or unintended consequences of large raises now and then talking about them again in the next budgetary cycle. That's my concern. Not this one, but this one with what we're talking about in the budget going forward. And it's hard because I don't have that budget in front of me, and I won't for another month because you don't have it in front of you. Yeah. So it just becomes a little difficult to really make these long-term decisions without all the information. That's how I feel. And if I'm the only one who feels that way, I'm going to be quiet now and let everyone know.
But you bring up some good points. So, and I think I have a very good staff, and we actually address a lot of those points and have looked at that because, we're accountable to, I'm not going to say, let's do this raise and then we can't pay for it next year. And one of the things that we looked at was a great point, Vicki, is your kindergarten numbers are down. So where we may have said, looking at the attendance and membership, where we might not need a teacher in 5th grade as you track that class, we have also accounted to adding kindergarten teachers and not looking at those numbers because we know those numbers are false. So I think we have done a good job mapping out what are those things that we know we're going to be hit with and et cetera. And we have actually accounted for putting on paper, if we were able to give another raise next year, what would that look like for positions and others? If we don't, well, then you're going to do more of those positions. So we have leeway. I don't feel like we're trapped into not having some key positions.
I mean, I haven't seen that information. So for me, you're asking me to make a decision with information you've seen, but I have not received. I mean, right? I mean, so that's frustrating to me because I'm asking these questions and you're like, well, we've already done that. We've seen that, but I never got any of that information to make a good decision. And so I don't know.
Could we get the information that Vicki is asking for by our next meeting?
Well, that information is on next year's budget, right?
Right, and it's a lot of, that's guesswork, whether.
So what I'm thinking now, just hearing all this discussion, because this discussion is good. We needed to have this discussion. I want to have a meeting in January for us as board members to meet with the staff to talk about next year's budget before the budget is presented to us. Give us a chance to say some things about the budget to be considered to put in the budget. But for example, I'm worried about, well, not really. We know that the challenges that are coming when all of our babies come back, it's going to be tremendous learning gaps. And we're going to have to, our teachers, every employee is going to have to work hard at supporting these needs and closing supporting closing the learning gaps. We don't know what that entails, which is kind of what you're saying. So we may need more instructional assistants to help us than we've ever had before, especially in grades K through 3. We don't know. And so there's a lot of guesswork here. But at the same time, getting the teacher salary scale where it's presented in here, I personally, now that we've had discussion, I don't have a problem with that. But next budget, when we're working on next year's budget, we're going to have to do some serious talking. We may look at the budget and say, if we want to attract more instructional assistants, we don't want to be mid. We might want to raise the instructional assistants to where it's very attractive to come to Wight County, and we can attract good instructional assistants to help us in such a critical time where these kids are going to need more support. So if we were to get together in January and talk more and have that information that Dr. Thornton's talking about, that you're saying, I haven't seen that maybe we can see and have good discussion in planning what's ahead for next year's budget.
I agree. I would like to have a sit down with staff and discuss, upcoming budget. And as you said, we can have our input, because we could go on for a long time tonight discussing the budget here. And just like you said, you all did your surveys and you're still processing these surveys. And by that time, you all will have all of that together. And we pretty much have some type of window to know where we're going in the future, especially after you compile all of your surveys. And Dr. Thornton, I am an advocate for getting the teachers' pay as well as the IT pay and competitive in our area. And I'm going to say this again, Wight County just happened to be in one of the largest areas in the state. Northern Virginia is one area and Hampton Roads is the other. Wight County is that growing county that's surrounded in the Hampton Roads area that's surrounded by the big cities. And we are going to have to continue to compete with them for the best. And the most important thing, and always our first priority, are the students. We can't continue to keep the salaries low. And because with the salaries low, we're not going to attract anyone to want to come here to work for us. This is some of our problems now. We're competing with the big cities. And I don't want to get off track, but our students here in this county deserve to have the best too. Maybe all of our staff may not be at the top, but at least majority of them, and we want to maintain the best, okay, for them. When they come back to school full-time, all of the students come back full-time, in a conversation I had with you earlier, you had said something about there's a possibility, maybe there are some positions you may not need going forward in the future, and you know what those positions you mentioned. I would recommend going forward, maybe keeping them for a year or so, because of what Mrs. Hulick and Mrs. Carr has said. Going forward, we know there are going to be some gaps in learning, and we could maybe get those people to help assist the teachers, because the teacher's going to have a grave job trying to get those kids back on level. And maybe we can continue, those individuals can work with some of those students to bring that gap together. I would rather keep them on the positions on than, do away with some of those positions and then have to bring them back. Let's just see where we're going with it.
My final word, if I can, Ms. Carr. So, final word, if I can, for me. The positions I'm talking about are not filled currently, and also, I understand what you're saying. I know that I'm trying to hold this school system together, and who I care about right now is the employees that I have right now that come to work every day and are fighting for our kids. That's who I want to pay now and in the future. And then if we have other things that happen, we'll figure that out. But to me, the priority in this budget coming forward next year is the people we have. We don't know who's going to come here. And I'm not sure too many people are going to want to come here, because I know the surrounding areas are given bonuses and they're taking care of the people who are fighting through the pandemic now. And I'm passionate about my team, and I see these people every day, and I'm talking about giving them a cost of living, and we could do it right now. And I just hate to pass that by. So.
I don't have a problem with that at all. If you can see us giving it to them, fine. And that's what you're telling us now. You don't have a problem with it. The funds are there. And coming into this meeting tonight, that's what I wanted to hear you say. That you are comfortable with it, okay? And if you're comfortable with it, I don't have a problem. I can be comfortable with it too, because you know exactly where those funds are coming from. I just want to make sure going in the future that your staff will understand that we may not be able to give them that 2% in the future. But right now, if we have it, it's fine.
Right. I do want to make that clear. We're not going to be able to meet everyone's needs. And what I'm presenting to you is a priority, saying people is the priority, and that the rest have to be put on hold for a year.
Okay.
And the other priorities that I think Vicki hit on that are very important, those reading specialists that we're going to have, math specialists for recovery. I feel confident we're going to have those funds in the CARES funds. We already have $500,000 in the CARES funds for that. And so that's why I feel confident. So I'm not saying we can do this raise now and do a lot of other things. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we can do the raise now and through the CARES fund take care of remediation, and that's probably about it. So that is what I'm saying. I'm not saying we can do it all.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this all came onto us very quickly. So we had to have discussion because we didn't understand it. So we have questions that we have to understand before we vote yes on this, because raises are ongoing. We're not talking about a bonus that is a one-time thing that you said. That's not what we're talking about. Once we set these salaries, we live with it.
Absolutely.
So those questions and this discussion was imperative.
And we did give a bonus, didn't we, to people
We
who
did
did
last
we did
month.
do that.
Yes, through the CARES fund we did
Yeah.
these. It wasn't a bonus.
Training.
It was a stipend.
It was a stipend.
Stipend for
training.
completing specific
completing.
training.
Right.
That they were mandated.
Because you can't
to
give
do.
a bonus.
Yeah,
in
we
a-
did do that.
Yes, but just like but you said other localities are giving
Some
the
are
stipends and the bonuses, and I
Right.
just want to point out that we too are doing that as well. We are not neglecting our people.
No, we're not.
We were funded, we put the HSA money back into the accounts as well, correct?
Correct.
So I just want to be clear, we're not neglecting or ignoring, we are treating and we value our employees. I want that to be clear, because I don't want that to be miscommunicated in what you said in regard to, taking care of the people we have.
Yeah.
Because every single one of us want the same thing.
I understand.
But we
that.
have to ask questions and understand where we are, why we're doing it, and what is lying ahead. Because we are responsible.
We are the ones that are fiscally
right.
responsible to the public.
Absolutely.
So I feel like if we meet in January, we can get more detail on what's ahead. But for tonight, we can look at what is on the agenda. And the first thing is the new teacher salary scale. We might understand it better now. And do we have a motion to go forward with this?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we vote on the proposed new teacher salary scale as presented by Dr. Thornton.
Second.
Is that as approved, or you said to vote?
Well, we approve, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Approve. Thank you,
Mhm.
Madam Clerk.
Ms. Perkins, you were,
Second.
I can't read it because of my eyes. Is it,
it passed. Mhm.
okay, so that was passed.
Yes.
The next is 15.2, raise for all employees. 2% raise for all employees. Do we have a motion?
You know what, I can go forward and do a motion after he clarifies some of the things for me. I can make a motion on that. Madam Chair, I would like to recommend that we approve the 2% raise for all employees.
We have a second?
Well, I guess we have some discussion. We didn't get a
Do
second.
we have a motion? We don't have a second.
Second.
So do we need more discussion?
I mean, I feel like I discussed pretty heavily.
So after the discussion and Dr. Thornton's response, what problem do you have with that part now?
I'd like to table it a month and just look at, because I don't like that the teachers have not moved, like they went backwards, some of them, literally, like.
Well,
it
we've
looked like
already approved
there's
this.
steps. No, I know, that's why I voted for that, yes, because of the way that they didn't go up a step. And that's reflected in their years of experience. With this, I'd like to table this and then have a look at that information and know that long-term it's something that is sustainable. I'd like to see the numbers. That's my personal. If you guys feel good about it, you know, that's fine. But I want to see numbers. That's how I like to operate.
Will this pose a problem if we table it? I mean, do you have a timeline when
Did
this
you
meeting?
say you'd like to table it for a month?
I'd like to talk about it at our January meeting. If we
Okay.
can meet.
When we meet in January?
If we meet in early January, and we're able to at least see those rough numbers, so I can get an idea, that you said you've already got, so it shouldn't be, you know, just the rough numbers, just to see, and I would like to know budget-wise where we're going and what the plan is in the next budget in regard to this and what you want to do in the next budget. Because to me, that's a big piece of it. But that's my thoughts. I could be the only one who thinks that way. I haven't heard much from Ms. Perkins. Let's talk to her.
What are you thinking, Ms. Perkins?
I would like to think about it for another month myself. I have sort of mixed emotions about it. I think that we have some employees that are making pretty good salaries, but I think we have others that perhaps are not making the kinds of salaries that they probably deserve. I'm not sure about the equity. And that's just my thought.
So we,
Okay, well, Madam Chair, I will pull my motion from the floor.
Do I have to make a motion to table it for a month?
Yes.
You don't, there wasn't a second, so it just dies.
Okay. So I would like to, if you could put this on next month's agenda, Madam Chair.
well, maybe we could meet before.
So we're already meeting January 6th for the CMAR. You could add that to the agenda for January 6th.
That
That
would
would
be
be great.
perfect.
That would be good.
That's 9 a.m. anyway, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So again, this is not a no, it's a table.
Yes.
All right, next on the agenda, 15.3, change in the 2020-2021 school calendar.
Russell.
There was only one change,
Change.
right?
Yeah,
Wasn't it?
I saw that.
Good evening. The recommended change is to remove the early dismissal designation on the 2 days between first and second semester. Those were originally designated as 3-hour early dismissals because that's typically when we do exams. On the hybrid schedule, though, we're not in school on Friday. The kids aren't in school on Friday anyhow. And the schools are going to be adopting their exam schedules for that week because they're A-B schedule. So we're making those 2 full days. That's the only change at the moment. And we just need your approval to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we need a motion to revise the school agenda, the school calendar.
Madam Chair, I move that we revive the school calendar.
Have a second?
Second.
Oh, I thought Jackie, I'm sorry.
So now we vote. Is it up?
I mean, on Ms. Hewlett's.
Yeah, no, my computer started doing something funny. I got it. Hold on. I actually might need help. What is this? Right. See there, I stumped the tech guy. I was looking at the calendar and then I was flipping it back to board docs and that's what it did.
It's not a real.
I know. Otherwise I would have solved it. So I was trying to go out of it and then go back into board docs and re-log in. You get it?
Yes, ma'am.
What had happened?
All the tabs collapsed down into a single line.
And then flipped?
Yep. So I just
Okay.
restarted it. Come right back up.
All right.
You want to just tell me verbal? I can do it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so did it pass?
Yes.
Okay, so that motion was passed. Next on the agenda is student achievement and attendance update. Mr. Lombardo.
Good evening. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Thornton. This evening I'll provide an update regarding student achievement and attendance. So specifically, I'll share data regarding the percentage of students with 1 or more failing grades in the first 9 weeks, and the percentage of students who have been absent 4 or more days. Of course, this data is unfortunately directly related to some of the impacts we're seeing from the pandemic and the different ways in which school is being operated. So this information and these data points do relate directly to priorities 1, 2, and 3, and for some reason that converted Eric to ones. That's okay. But it's priorities 1, 2, and 3 of the division strategic plan. We'll start by looking at student achievement data. So this chart provides information regarding the following question: what percentage of students have 1 or more failing grades in the first 9 weeks? And so what I'd like you to do is look over at the far right-hand side of the table. There you'll see where it says 2021 quarter 1. So that's our current school year and after this first 9 weeks. And I'll break this down for you by level. So at the elementary level, and I will also say, as I'm doing this, you can refer back to the first 9 weeks from last school year as a comparison point. And as you can see by glancing, obviously there are more students in this grouping after quarter 1 this year. But for elementary, 10% of our students fall into this group, and that's 255 students. And I figured you'd want to know, well, how many of those students are virtual? Of that 255 students, 117 are virtual learners right now. For the middle school level, 23% of the students have one or more failing grades after the first 9 weeks. That's 237 students. Of that group of 237 students, 130 of them are virtual students. Finally, the high school level, 29% of the high school students have one or more failing grades after the first 9 weeks. That's 538 students. 221 of that group are virtual. So based on the achievement data that you just looked at, I want to share with you some of the next steps that our principals, teachers, and staff are planning to help our students. So at this time, teachers and principals are in the process of developing and implementing remediation and recovery plans at the elementary and secondary levels. The remediation and recovery efforts will take place, specifically the ones that I'm going to talk about now, on Fridays, both in person and virtually, and focus on mastery of the content and skills of the curriculum rather than simply focusing on arbitrary grade. Now, what we'll do is we'll start by talking about the high school, as they'll be the first group that starts with the Friday remediation plans. The reason for that is we're coming towards, obviously, the close of the first semester, and also with our high schoolers, we have mid-year January, mid to late January SOLs, end of course SOLs. So they're going to get those students started right away on the Fridays. High school remediation, that will begin on December 11th. Which is tomorrow. Students will be invited who are in danger of failing courses and or end of course SOLs in January. These remediation and recovery sessions for high school will take place. They'll be 3 hours in the morning. They'll take place beginning on Friday the 11th, the December 18th, and also Friday, January 8th. That's all, those sessions are all in advance of the January end of course SOLs. So high school students also with low first 9 week grades, those grades can be revised as students work with teachers to complete missing assignments and also show proficiency within the course material. The high schools will also be establishing virtual remediation and recovery sessions for virtual students. Again, they're emphasizing the opportunity to recover from failing grades from the first 9 weeks and also to pass the course and the opportunity to receive extra help for those end of course SOLs coming up. And we'll also share with the board that recent action in November from the Virginia Board of Education allows for our students who were enrolled in our fall, as of this fall in our high school courses, it allows those students to receive a local verified credit if they pass the course. Okay, and so that's what we're trying to do to help any of those students in danger of not passing. And also if they score in that band between 350 and 399 on the SOL, of course, 400 being that traditional passing score. But this leeway, of course, again, related to the pandemic, is actually excellent news for our students as far as receiving those local verified credits for the coursework. As far as our middle schools, for middle schools, they'll begin sessions in January after winter break. They'll be set up very similar manner, 3-hour sessions in the morning for remediation and recovery of some of those low grades from the first 9 weeks. Students in danger of failing courses and or the end of course SOLs will be invited. They'll start in January, but those will run through into and through the second semester as far as needed. At the elementary level, as with the middle school, the elementary principals, teachers, and staff, they are planning to begin remediation after winter break. Again, those are going to be set up as 3-hour morning sessions on Fridays. The elementary sessions will, of course, run in January and continue into that second semester. One point there, if for some reason, hopefully soon, we're able to bring back our pre-K through 3 students 5 days per week, we would continue with Friday remediation for our 4th and 5th graders. Hopefully we get them back soon as well for a 5-day week. Just a few other notes that I wanted to share with the board regarding the plans that our principals and teachers and staff have for Friday sessions. Transportation will be offered and provided for students. A bag breakfast will be given to the students when they arrive, and they'll receive a bag lunch when they leave. The remediation sessions for elementary and secondary may include special education students, as this remediation and recovery would be in addition to the services that are being provided for them at this time. For our virtual students will also be part of the remediation plans for elementary school and middle school, as was the case with the high school plan I described. Virtual sessions for remediation and recovery will be provided for our virtual students, and virtual students may attend in person on Fridays if the family chooses and would like to do that. So our principals and our teachers are happy to have them come in on the Fridays if the families would like for those students to do that, even if they've been part of our virtual learning.
That's middle school or element?
That's for all levels.
All levels,
all three
okay.
levels, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So next, we'll take a look at attendance data. So the following chart provides information regarding what percentage of students have been absent 4 or more days in the first 9 weeks. One thing that I'll note here is that school divisions obviously need to determine attendance differently during the pandemic so that we do not punish students for circumstances that are beyond their control. If you look at, the far right-hand column, as we did in the other data table, here you'll see 2021 quarter 1. You can compare that back, of course, one column to the left to 2019 quarter 1. And what you'll notice here is that the percentages of students in this category of the question have actually gone down. And I'll provide some insight into why that would be the case. If we start with elementary, so there we have 13% of our students who have been absent 4 or more days. That's actually 333 students. 153 of that 333 represents virtual students, and I'll explain why that would be the case. Middle school, there 3% of the middle school students have been absent 4 or more days in the first 9 weeks. 36 students, and it's 5 of those students who are virtual learners. And then at the high school level, 5% of the students, and that's 96 students. Of that 96, 41 of them are virtual students. And so let's talk a little bit about how attendance is actually calculated at this time in our schools, and it will shed some light on why you see those numbers going down this year from where they were the previous year. So with this, basically, let's start with time-based versus product-based attendance. So according to Virginia Department of Education, attendance checks should be conducted on a daily basis regardless of the instructional modality, and that's so that a data point is available for each student on each school day. The Department of Education has identified 2 modes of tracking attendance, and those are time-based, i.e., is the student present in school or present in the Zoom session, and product-based, did the student submit the work expected for that day? So those are the 2 different methods. Divisions were directed to consider attendance through an equity lens, especially as it relates to accessing instruction. So IWCS has chosen attendance measures that allow us to both ensure compliance with compulsory attendance regulations, but also provide flexibility for our families in these uncertain times. So you can see the following bullets, in-person and 100% virtual students. Let me just kind of give you a little bit more clarity around those 2 categories and how attendance is calculated. So for in-person continuum students, in-person days are time-based, physical presence in school. Makes sense. Asynchronous days are product-based, submission of expected work. So if I'm an 8A student and I'm at school on Monday, if I'm in school, I'm present. On Tuesday, I'm home for my asynchronous learning. If I submit the work that was expected to be submitted for that day, I'm present on that day. For 100% virtual students, synchronous days, that's the time when they're in Zoom sessions with their teachers, those are either time-based or product-based. The student is present if they are in the Zoom or if they submit the expected work. You can understand the plethora of reasons why a family may experience difficulty having their student in a Zoom on any given day. That's the reason for the product-based attendance. So the final piece that I wanted to share with the board was just around the reconciliation of attendance process. And so just bear with me, there's just a little bit more information here, and then that'll bring us to the close of the presentation. So as for the reconciliation of attendance process, all students have 5 school days to turn in expected work in order for it to be counted for product-based attendance purposes. So they have 5 days to submit the work. Attendance is reconciled on the 6th day. So again, I'll give it to you as first as in-person continuum students. Asynchronous days are changed to absences if the student has not turned in the expected work. In-person days are not reconciled. So what that's basically saying is for our in-person students, they have 5 days to turn in the work that was expected from one of their asynchronous, not at school days. And on the 6th day, the teachers reconcile that attendance. And the in-person days for those kids, if you're there, you're present. If you're not, you're absent. That's traditional. So for our 100% virtual students, synchronous days are changed to absences if the student was not in the Zoom and did not turn in the expected work. They were given that opportunity, those 5 days. Again, on the 6th day, the teacher would reconcile that attendance. Asynchronous days are changed to absences if the student has not turned in the expected work. So I hope this provided some context, especially for percentages of students receiving 1 or more failing grades in the first 9 weeks, and the work not only that's going on obviously every day with those students and the amazing work that our teachers and staff are doing, but now this very specialized effort to bring those students in on Fridays to do remediation and recovery efforts. And also hopefully some clarity around how attendance is being calculated at this time. And again, how from the Department of Education to the localities, every effort is being made not to penalize students for circumstances outside of their control with attendance. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
It's a lot of data keeping.
It's a lot of data keeping, and I will say with the reconciliation process, I mean, many of you being former educators, you can imagine that process. So there's a lot on our teachers. And I think that the other piece I would say is think about this recovery and remediation plan. I've just shared obviously the very skeletal version of it, but imagine the work of our principals and our teachers and our building staff. This involves Mr. Livingston and his staff. This involves food services, Mr. Coleman and all of our support staff to make all of this happen, going back to really just seeing the division pull together to really keep things moving forward. But it's a lot. To your point, Ms. Carr, just the reconciliation of attendance alone has been a big learning curve for our teachers, and they've been troopers. And we've worked with them and tried to help them through it. I know Ms. Loud and our team has really tried to help to ease that. Certainly as we move forward and hopefully we move more towards in-person, that certainly streamlines it, because then you move towards that time-based.
So with that, what are your greatest concerns?
Well, it goes back to what the board was discussing earlier. We know that what's been happening since March has had a great impact on our students, and gaps exist. And so what we're trying to do is work with the principals and the teachers and staff to really look at data, whether it's reading data, math data. There's lots of different data points we have through the assessments that we have and just the work that we do day to day with the kids to identify where are individual students and how can we help them to master the content and skills of the curriculum. We don't want to be so focused on a letter grade and a grade book. We want to be more focused on what are the skills that you need to be successful in the subsequent course or the next grade level. And that's where our focus is, and those are our concerns.
So with virtual remediation, how will that take place if they choose not to come in on Friday?
Yes, so the school teams are developing virtual remediation sessions for those students. So it would take place very much like they're experiencing virtual learning now. They'll have a virtual teacher, either their teacher or a teacher who's doing remediation, depending on the plan. There's some nuances to it. But they'll have a live teacher, one of our teachers, delivering virtual remediation for them while they're at home.
So talking to your virtual teachers, do they voice great concerns of attendance or even failing students who are failing that they wouldn't expect to have failed if they had, if it had been a normal year? Is there a lot of concern voiced with this? Or are they very hey, things are going really well? Or is it mixed?
Well, I think it's certainly a mix. I mean, I don't think that any of us believe that this is in any way a best case type scenario for any of our learners at this time. Even for our in-person students, things look very different right now. But what I will say is that our teachers are on top of it. I mean, going back from learning how to teach in a virtual environment, learning Canvas, becoming Google certified to become more proficient with the Google suite and tools that we have access to working, they're literally doing everything they can to, when a student's not on a Zoom, finding out why didn't that student get on the Zoom, trying to reach the student, the parents, accepting that work for the product base so that the child can get credit for doing the work because there must have been some difficulty. So there are other students who virtual learning, actually seems to not be a horrible fit for them, and they're doing fairly well. But in general, I think that what we know is that we're worried about all of our students.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, we have amazing teachers who are really on top of it. Our goal is just to try to support them in the work that they're doing.
Madam Chair, do you mind? So one of the things I think we might end up seeing, just because I know I'm virtually doing it all, and I've talked to other parents who are also doing the same thing. The first quarter, a lot of parents were still trying to figure out how to submit on Canvas. They weren't submitting properly, things weren't getting in, and they were trying to work through with teachers. I think you're going to see an improvement in the second quarter, and I think those numbers would be more reflective of what's actually going on, because I feel like the first quarter had a very large learning curve. So I would like to see the second quarter numbers, like in March or April, just to give it a more relative, because I know I had to learn how to use Canvas and Google and all that, and how to incorporate and take the picture with the iPad and make sure it applied properly and make sure it's synced, and then it didn't sync, or, it just, or the kids submitted work without, and it was a picture of their knee instead of the actual work. So, I think you're going to see a lot of those bumps in that first semester, and I'd be curious to see if the second semester is different or if you saw a dramatic improvement in that, just because I know that there were a lot of parent technical difficulties or things to overcome as students and parents were both learning those systems.
No, I think that's great insight, and that's absolutely what we're seeing. And so we do plan to, and we'll be happy to bring back data as we continue forward to share with the board. But I would agree with that. And not only did the parents and the children get better with the new technology and the modalities that we're using, but as educators, we're getting better as well. So we're happy to bring data back to you and keep you posted, obviously, on how the children are progressing.
Because the attendance seemed really good. So if people are there, whether it's being in the Zoom or in class, or submitting the work, the failing rate doesn't make sense with the attendance rate being lower, unless there was some technical that's the way my head's looking at the data. And I know I had issues with it, and I'm, for the most part, okay with computers. And so there's a lot of parents who aren't okay with computers, or they work, so it's hard for a parent to get to check to make sure it was submitted properly until you get in that group. So I do feel like that might be a variable in that first quarter data.
We will certainly bring back data to the board and update you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Okay, next on the agenda is the donation for building trades.
So I'm very excited to share with the board and the community the donation for building trades. So I will say that Mr. Mordecai has done tremendous work in helping us build a partnership with Ferguson Corporation. They have been very impressed with the work of our building trades program, our instructor, Mr. Rogers, and our students, going back to, for instance, the Hobbs Home Rehab and other projects that the students have been engaged in. And so Ferguson Corporation has generously made a donation. We're seeking the board's approval and permission to move forward with that of $25,000 for us to immediately use with our building trades program for more authentic projects like the home rehabilitations that we have started on. So very pleased to announce that partnership and that very generous donation from Ferguson Corporation.
That is great.
You need an action now?
Is that action now, or does that come?
That's in the consent.
I thought so. Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the gifted program update.
Yes, Madam Chair, in your packet is a timeline for a gifted review. The gifted review is not up for its 5-year review, but it's something that we wanted to make a priority. It is not something that I have reviewed since I've been here. And so we're putting a research team together made up of administrators, gifted teachers, principals, to actually collect data, look at what we're doing, talk to students that have been through our entire system. Maybe they're in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade now. We are going to talk to some of the students that are currently in a program. It's a little harder because of this year. But to talk to the students who have traveled through our school and have been through search, taken AP classes, dual enrollment, maybe have attended one of the governor's schools, to really look at it. And the gifted research team is actually going to review the entire plan K through 12 to include things like search, AP, dual enrollment, Governor's School of the Arts, Governor's School of the Sciences. And what I've asked them to do is we don't have to continue with search or any of these things after investigating, do a lot of research, brainstorming, and to dream big. And let's see what that looks like. If there's components that are excellent, let's keep doing those and maybe even do them better. So that's the purpose of the review, and there was a timeline in your packet for that. With ultimately, then we also have a gifted advisory committee that will share information with, get comments back, and all of that will be done before we bring it to the board. And it says this timeline is tentative. We may need more time. We had our initial meeting yesterday, a lot of good discussion. It may take longer as we go through this, but I wanted to give you some sort of timeline. And what
Question,
we're
with
looking
that
at.
survey, was that for all, was that a parent survey for all parents of gifted students? That includes parents of children in AP and, or just the search and give with the governor's school? So what does it all include? Who did the survey actually go to?
So it went to anyone, any parent of an identified gifted student. So
Okay, so that wouldn't be all AP.
Right.
Okay.
So AP and dual enrollment often are considered programs for gifted. Of course, in many systems, though, they're
Right.
offered to gifted and other students. Same as governor's school.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I did want to talk a little bit about the Governor's School of the Arts and Governor's School of Science. We have had people come forward recently talking about that, talking about the grade point average. So I thought in the gifted presentation is a good time to clarify some of that and see if you have further questions. One thing I wanted to let people know, and I don't even know if the public realizes this, because unless you really look into the weeds of a budget, so the Governor's School of the Arts costs Wight County $95,370 per year. And currently we serve 28 students. Last year we served 29. It's about $3,400 a student. And when I say $3,400 a student, we have a per student cost here of over $11,000 for every student. That is on top of that for those students who attend that. So it really is a special program and for those students. Same as the Governor's School of Science and Technology. That's $123,955 per year. 13 students enrolled currently. That's down from last year's 17. And there's testing criteria and entrance criteria for that. And we pay $9,500 per student for that. So I wanted you to be aware of that.
9,500 plus?
Correct.
Plus
On
the
top
11.
of, yes. And so one of the things I know the committee is going to look at as well is we want to track those students who went through those programs. Are those students that are going to the Governor's School of Sciences, are they going on to college, and are they going into engineering? Are they going into exploring the sciences? And it's okay if all of them don't. We do hope a majority do. Some may go there and find out that's not for them, and that's okay. And the same with Governor's School of the Arts. Are we tracking students, and are they going on to colleges for dance or music or the arts? And again, everyone doesn't have to do that, but we're hoping to see that a large amount are doing that, and that we're not paying for this as just an extra for students to do. So we're going to examine all of that. One of the things that I know you're all aware of that has come forward is equity concerns of how we give grade point average for Governor's School of the Arts versus Governor's School of the Science. And we recently made the Governor's School of the Arts, they get an extra 0.5 for every class they take, where the Governor's School of the Science gets an extra point on the grade point average. And so that has been argued that is not equitable. But if you actually look at the Governor's School of the Arts and the number of credits that they can earn in that 4-year period, they're actually getting an extra 16 points on their GPA, while the Governor's School of Science is only getting 9 in that same time period.
That's in the whole high school years?
Correct. And so by doing the action we did with regulation, now the Governor's School of the Arts students can earn 8 extra points towards their GPA, while the Governor's School of Science can earn 9. A lot more equitable and fair for all students who have different gifts. And I do want to point out too, at the Governor's School of the Arts, we attend that with Chesapeake, Franklin, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Southampton, Suffolk, and Virginia Beach. And Isle of Wight gives the highest amount of credit towards your grade point average than any of those schools. I know Southampton, Suffolk gives the same as us. Everyone else gives less. Some give no additional weight. Another concern that was raised by some parents was that other schools weight everything the same. So that if they have a Governor's School of the Science and the Arts, they weight it the same. If they have AP or IB, honors, it's all weighted the same, and that we're the only one not doing that. And that's just not true. We researched that, and Chesapeake weights Governor's School of the Arts 0.25, and they weight other courses anywhere from 0.25 to 0.5. Norfolk weighs Governor's School of the Arts at 0.25, and their AP and IB 0.03, and their honors 0.0125. Portsmouth gives no additional weight to the Governor's School of the Arts, yet gives AP and dual enrollment 1 point extra and honors 0.5. Southampton gives Governor's School of the Arts 0.05 in the first year, 0.1 in the second year, 0.2 in the third year, and 0.3 in the fourth year, and they give no additional weight to the Governor's School of the Science. They can do it in opposite direction. Suffolk gives 0.5 and gives IB 1.0, and Virginia Beach gives no additional weight to Governor's School of the Arts, and they give a variety of different weights to AP classes and some of their magnet schools. So you see all of the different schools in our region, according to their staff and how they function and what they believe, I'm sure they look at equity as well and the rankings. They make their own decisions. And so we feel like we made an equitable decision, and I just wanted to share that information with you tonight and see if you had any questions on where we might be going with gifted.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Dr. Thornton. Dr. Thornton, I think I mentioned this to you before. I understand what you're saying, and you know, you're correct that changing as far as the point system for the two that we have, because we're, again, Wight County students are unique because we have students in the STEM program as well as the fine arts, governor schools. But my concern was, we have seniors this year, juniors and sophomores they were already in the program on the old point system prior to the change.
Mhm.
And I felt that they should have been grandfathered because the students that just graduated, the class of 2020, they graduated with that higher grade point. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that was my only concern. Those three classes that we have right now of students, maybe they should have been grandfathered. And and the students that entered the program this year, 9th grade and going forward, they will start with the new. Because it seems, of course, the mistake that was made, it was our responsibility. But we cannot blame the students for it. And for that group of students, meaning the seniors, the juniors, and the sophomores, it's like we're holding them responsible and telling them, you know what, we're changing this because someone made a mistake. And so they're not going to go forward where they're thinking like the seniors this year said, well, the seniors last year, they got it. How come I can't get it? That was my only concern. Those kids that is caught up, the students that are caught up in it, let them be grandfathered and continue with it. And I know for about 3 years there, you're going to have a couple of point systems there, but I just feel it's fair to them because the students are not responsible. We, the adults, are responsible for the mistake that was made.
So if I can address that, I see Vicki's got a question too, but if I could address that point, and it's a good point, but the inequity goes both ways. So right now, the people being affected, and the reason we made the change were parents that have students in the Governor's School of Science have come forward and said, why is this happening? Why do you have this inequity of 16 points versus the 9? It's not fair. And not just the Governor's School of Science. We have students that attend neither Governor's School who take all AP classes, all dual enrollment classes, and they're adversely affected. So the mistake caused a small group of 28 students at the Governor's School having an advantage over all students. So to fix that inequity, we haven't harmed those students at all. They still got extra credits in their freshman and sophomore year and will still be able to get the other half of those credits moving forward. They'll still earn, so they'll earn 8 and 4, they'll earn 12 as opposed to the 9. So there's still going to be an equity for 2 years. But what we try to do is stop the large inequity that was there and fix the problem. So when a problem is brought forward, a lot of times you can grandfather it, but in this case, we didn't grandfather because it's affecting so many other people and not just those students. If it was only affecting them, and it's not affecting them bad, they're still getting extra points like other students.
And to your point, these are schools that these students feel passionate about. The point value isn't going to affect whether they apply or not. And they're still getting that extra boost. I remember when we voted on it, it was an equity issue for the entire school. And so, you know, I understand the concern of the 28, but then we have to look at the other, 1,400 kids in high school that are being disadvantaged because of it.
I'm just going to agree to disagree, okay?
We can do that.
Sometimes we have to do that.
And I do want to reiterate, I think it's amazing that Isle of Wight can offer 2 governor's school programs like this at that amount of money for a small number of students to have that special gift in the Governor's School of the Arts. We've been there. I know you've served on the committees. You probably all have. And the instructors there are amazing dance instructors, vocal instructors, and what the gift that our kids are getting that we're paying for is amazing. And the same at the Governor's School of Science and Technology. Just amazing work that they do at that school as well. So I hope our parents appreciate that opportunity that this school board provides for them.
And just to add something to what you just said, I've had an opportunity to go to some of the productions they have had in Norfolk, and I have gone to many productions and plays on Broadway, and the comparison. We have had students from the community to go forward, and they are still out there working. So if we only get 2 or 3 students to go out there and become famous and make a name for themselves, get into movies or something, it was worth it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, we're from a small rural county.
Right. That's why we want to track that data and report back in the gifted plan. Where are these students going and what's happening?
Because this is very competitive. They don't just go because they want to go. They have to apply, audition, all those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
So there's definitely some giftedness to be approved to be in the program.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that conclude your report on the gifted?
Yes. Unless there's any other questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is the equity update.
Okay. Madam Chair, this is me again. So in order to support Kiana Jones, who is going to be our new coordinator of equity and inclusion, we have been researching the possibility of contracting consulting services to provide direct coaching as we develop a comprehensive equity plan. This is definitely not an area of expertise of any of our staff. That's why we've hired this person. But again, we want to provide the supports for this person as we move through this endeavor. So on November 30th, Amos Fudchuk and Jen Court of Advanced Learning Partnerships met with Mike Lombardo and to consider how we can further operationalize the commitment to equity and diversity. And Jen Court has spoken at national conferences, has been featured in journals, newspapers, and podcasts. She's worked with schools throughout the United States and internationally and is a host of a syndicated podcast focusing on equity, diversity, inclusion, and justice in schools. And so that's who we are looking to bring in as a consultant to work with Kiana. We're going to talk to Kiana Jones about how much support she needs as we start planning what are those first steps. How are we going to interview our students? How are we going to interview our community and make decisions? So I just wanted to update you. We're looking at that. And once she's on board in January, then hopefully you'll be able to meet her in January, and hopefully in February, start to see the first traces and steps of what we're going to do with equity.
All right.
If you have any questions with that or comments?
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the Return to Learn furniture purchase.
Okay, so under this, I'll talk about the furniture second. I want to talk a little about Return to Learn and what's going on. So, as you're aware, last month at the meeting, I wanted to move pre-K through 3 to 5 days a week. And in the meantime, we've had rising numbers throughout Virginia and in our own community. And we made the decision to put that on hold. And so I really wanted to talk about that because we haven't had to move. We've opened, and now we have hybrid at all of our schools, and we haven't had to fluctuate like many of the counties around us because we've done a good job with the mitigations. But I think it's building this false sense of security. And so I wanted to reiterate to the community that we're still in a continuum, which means we're in the middle of the continuum. We could go back to totally remote and have to close a school or the whole division. Or we could go to 5 days a week. And so I want the community to be mindful of that and also understand you're going to have to be flexible. I'm sure it's probably a little easier to move to the 5 days a week if you're a parent and this happens. And we understand that. So we're going to give as much warning as we can if we have to go totally remote in a school or a classroom. But understand we may not be able to give a lot of time because we're working with VDH and we have to make a decision based on health. We may have to close. We may only give you a day's notice. We're going to try to do more, of course. But I just want the community to hear that, understand that. We've had some concerns in Carsville and with staff. And staff is a thing too. So we may not have a spread with any of our students yet, and we haven't, knock on wood. But staff is becoming critical. We have some central office personnel in classrooms at Carsville right now. I know the principal has taught some classes. And so there gets to be a point where is it making sense instructionally to do that, or is it time to close? And so I know the principal, Ms. Hatfield, has sent a letter home to parents stating that, and just trying to see if we can make it to Christmas, but if we can't, we're not going to force that issue. And I just wanted to share that tonight because we, of course, have gotten some correspondence from that, and some of it is not kind. We have to go to work, and we have to understand that. We know all that. And so I just wanted to state again, we're in the continuum. We may have to go that way, and I don't want to go that way, but if we have to, I'll make that decision, just like we did as a team and said, we can't come 5 days a week. And some people were fine with that. Some people weren't thrilled, but just wanted to make the community aware of that. And we're going to be sending a letter in the other schools as well. Vicki?
When I know, since we're talking about the closure opening, I know we sent out to parents whether they wanted to stay virtual. Back on the 29th or the 30th to the 4th, they had to decide. I know we don't have the information from that yet. I have been reached out by a lot of people in the community. I think my district is one of the highest virtual districts, and they're begging for consistency with the virtual learning. They're asking to stay the same as they were. They're not asking for a change. They want to keep their teachers. I want my kids to keep their teachers. I understand. That's one of the many reasons we chose to stay virtual, because there's no worry about the influx. But it's just something I'm hearing a lot of from my constituents, and I understand it because I feel kind of the same way. The consistency of learning for those virtual students is important. If you decide to go back to school, you kind of go in with the knowledge you might have a different teacher because you're leaving that virtual environment. But if we could keep as much consistency as possible, I think that's really important for the students, not just for their learning, but for their mental health as well.
That's a good point, and I was going to address that as well, because I've been receiving probably some of the same emails that you guys have from virtual parents that contact me about wanting to keep their teacher in consistency. And that is definitely our goal. We have talked about that, and we've talked about that with principals, and have put a plan in place where principals are looking at every scenario to keep that from happening, and as well to the in-person students, and that they wouldn't be shifted. I've answered all parents truthfully that I cannot guarantee that, but one of the steps we're taking is more eyes help sometimes. So if principals get to that point where they feel like that has to happen, they're going to come to central office and work with our central office instructional team and explain that and see if there's any other alternatives. So we're going to look at every avenue so that doesn't happen, if we can keep it from happening. But there's definitely no guarantees based on numbers, and it could affect the other way as well. And that's really all I had to update you on the logistics. If you have any questions on that before I go to furniture.
That was mine.
Okay. So, you know, we bought a lot of furniture through money the Board of Supervisors have given us, through some other money that the governor gave out that had to be spent by December 30th, et cetera. We still do not have enough individual desks in all of the elementaries. And so I am looking for you to approve a purchase of furniture. And when I say Carrollton Elementary, the majority will be in Carrollton Elementary. And then what's left over from that order will filter down to Windsor and Carsville. Windsor and Carsville has already received furniture from what is filtered down from Hardy and West Side. So, but Carrollton is the biggest need right now. So the purchase that's in front of you is for that furniture. And we're tagging all this furniture, so, because we're kind of piecemealing it. So once this pandemic's over, we can have the furniture at the appropriate size and grade level where it belongs. And we may, as we go through, maybe in February, again, looking at the budget with this year's money, we may be able to look at more furniture for Windsor and Carsville. Windsor and Carsville probably equates to the size of Carrollton, maybe a little larger in the purchase. So that's kind of what we're looking at with furniture as we're moving on. And so I'm asking that this is over $200,000, so I'm asking that you approve that. This money is actually coming from our budget. As you know, we have a line item for furniture in the regular operating budget. That's $135,000, so it's not enough to cover this, but we also have playground equipment line item that we have not used. So we're combining those to make this purchase.
So this has nothing to do with the CARES money?
No.
This is coming from our budget, furniture and playground?
Correct.
Okay, my question...
Because we're trying to hold on to that CARES money for positions if needed.
So the furniture that we currently have, it's not good for the social distancing, correct?
Correct.
That's why we need...
Correct. It's mostly tables and...
Right, the
yes.
tables. So how are we gonna be storing the tables and all, because they're good tables, we're not gonna do away with them.
No, we're not. They're in the warehouse
Okay.
right up the street. Right. It's
So
getting pretty full. And Mr. Coleman, I know, is in SSE is trying to figure out where to put them all, I think. But this is good usable stuff, and
But the furniture we have now can turn into tables, right?
it can, yeah, they can connect and be in groups of 6, and they're color coded. So we made sure we bought tables that would service the need now of COVID and having to stay apart, and then coming together with our philosophy of collaboration.
So they're very versatile.
Yes.
So will we need our tables again?
We still might for little breakout areas, and you know, some teachers are going to want tables. They have their, you know, preferences, but
And these desks come with chairs, or
we are purchasing chairs.
So we might have more items to auction,
We might.
because we can't keep them stored, and if we're not using them, and we know, because these desks are so versatile, we may not need the others. But right now, we definitely need them for the times we're in, with the social distancing.
Exactly. And, you know, I think we all pray for normality next year, but I'm sure we're all going to be more cautious. I'm sure we still want to be spread out next year and be careful. So I think this is a wise purchase for now and into the near future.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Return to Learn furniture purchase.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. It's been seconded. We're ready to vote. Is it approved?
Hold on. The computer logged me out. I'm logging back in. I got this. I can do a verbal for you if you want. Okay, I got it.
Good.
Okay, motion carried. Next on the agenda is the personnel report. We need a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the personnel report as presented
Second.
and the addendum.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and it has been seconded. We're ready to vote. Okay, motion carried. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes, donations, and financials?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the adoption or to adopt the consent agenda.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. It has been seconded. We're ready to vote. Okay, motion carried. Next on the agenda is policy updates and revisions. First is the policies for second read. This was policy and guidelines on the use of physical restraint and seclusion. Any questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the policies for second read.
Second? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. It has been seconded. We're ready to vote. Okay, next on the agenda is board member requests and comments. Does anybody have any requests and comments?
I actually have a report. So before we made the decision to not continue with the tiered return for 5 days a week for elementary schools, I was asked to gather some feedback from the high schoolers on just where their head is at right now about going back 5 days a week. So I've recruited the help of the WHS SGA to reach out to students for their input, and here's what they responded with.
Leah, can you
Hold
move
it.
your mask down so we can?
Of course,
There you
okay.
go.
So when the time is right, we'd all like to go back 5 days a week because it provides a structured environment with real-time feedback, and it promotes engagement, and of course decreases distractions by, as one student has mentioned, at-home responsibilities. However, many students are wondering if now is really the right time to go back in person full-time. A lot of the students we've received feedback on are adapting nicely to the hybrid schedule and are finding ways to make it truly work for them. And they've expressed that it's safer, cases are steadily on the rise, and going back 5 days a week will make it much harder to socially distance. It also allows for a lot of flexibility in these unprecedented times. In elementary schools, students are only really around their 25 student class when they're back in full time, allowing for limited exposure, meaning if cases begin to spread throughout a classroom, that one classroom can quarantine. That can't be done in high school because we have 4 classes a day and students can be exposed to up to 100 other students, not including random encounters through the hallways or in other after-school activities. This makes contact tracing and precautions less efficient than they are in the hybrid schedule, and the necessary precautions could alter the in-person environment in ways that really damage the reasons we want to be back in school. It can cause extra anxiety to just switch back suddenly to be full-time, especially to those who are concerned about their safety, and it would just be another change right now in a year full of changes. Overall, while a good number of students are enjoying the hybrid schedule, when asked if they are opposed to a 5-day-a-week schedule, most have said that they would go back full-time if the division made that decision. However, this would be because they're choosing the lesser of two evils. Being safe on a hybrid schedule allows for a nice balance where they don't have to choose between being completely virtual or being back full-time. As for the C-track students that we talked with, while some considered returning if we remained on the hybrid schedule, many have stated that they probably will not return if we go back 5 days a week. So the question I have is, if we go back 5 days a week, since the in-person students would receive instruction every day, would this mean that track C, to receive the same amount of instruction, would have to Zoom 5 days a week, since at high school we don't have individual virtual teachers? Even though they chose virtual, the students I've talked with are already struggling to Zoom 2 days a week, so much less 5 days a week. So the impact on virtual students is just something I ask you to heavily consider when the time is right to return. In addition to the other things, such as we have 4 classes a day, we're exposed to a lot more students, and what would the precautions be? Some students have expressed that to return more safely, they would feel more comfortable with some precautions, such as temperature checks, but ultimately, no matter what decision you make, we have to find that good balance for the people that want to be back more often and for the people who just don't feel safe doing so at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
Well said.
Did you have any comment for that, Miss Dr. Thornton? Okay.
I'm not going
I just want to say that, what, like you talked about the continuum and how, we may go this way, we may go that way, and I appreciate that.
Right.
You're constantly looking at the data, and where you want to return back to normal, you're still acknowledging we got to look at the facts and what's best for our students.
I will comment to that, and thank you for doing that, Leah. And so that is, I think, where we struggle, is that the students, whether it's high school or middle school or elementary, and their families that are so comfortable now with the hybrid. Well, others are still not comfortable with the hybrid. They want 5 days a week. And it is going to be that balance to make that tough decision, because we cannot do both. We can't say some of you can come 2 days and some 5. And then we would have to work out logistically, what does that mean for virtual students? And I know the instructional team is talking about that, and we'll get feedback from principals and teachers on that too, because they're affected as well. So all of that will go, Leah, into our decision making. And so another great point, parents have to realize hybrid was not one of the options. It was the in-person continuum, and that's hard. So we'll continue to have those conversations though, and try to get as much information out there and be as transparent as we can. I will say some of the emails have thanked the board and our administration for being so transparent and honest. And one of them said, I'm asking you, will my teacher be switched? Because I know you're not going to lie to me. So, I mean, we're not. And we're being as honest, but we are trying to do as little disruption as we can. But some factors are just totally out of our hand in a pandemic.
Madam Chair, I have a comment. I just want to make this comment. Personally, I don't know what the future holds for public education because of this COVID-19 and the year 2020. But we all know this will be a year that goes down in history. This will be a year that we will never forget. And because we are coming to an end of this year 2020, I would like to thank all of you, all of the staff. I don't care what position you had. I would like to thank all of you for getting our students through this year. You worked hard. All of you worked hard. No matter what you did, if you showed up for work, you were working hard for our students to maintain some level of education. And I mentioned this to Dr. Thornton. I said, you know what, I've been hearing about other school districts in our area, our region, and they're being credited for doing this and doing that. I said, but how come I haven't heard that Isle of Wight was the first to do it? We were the first, and I'm proud of what you did. Of course, we are going to have some cases, but we were able to keep our cases down to a minimum. And none of the cases that we have heard of today, it did not come directly from our buildings, and I'm proud of that. Going forward with this, I would like to wish all of you a lovely holiday, and hopefully we will see all of us back here the first of the year, a new year, 2021, and we can look forward to hopefully, I don't think we will ever go back to what we call normal, but go back to a change, and in a few years, that will be our new normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tynes. And I just want to say that administrators work so hard to start a new year. And it's like this year, how many times has it been like we're starting another new year? And the planning that goes into something of this magnitude is absolutely tremendous. And I don't think we have a clue of the overtime hours that our employees have put into this year. And I thank you, and we appreciate you, and we will meet January 6th to continue our discussion on what's ahead. Yes, did you have something, Vicki?
I just want to say happy holidays, because on a brighter note, it is the holiday season, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like it, but I just wanted to make sure that we said happy holidays to everybody.
Okay, and did you want to say anything?
You all take
Said it
care
all.
of everything.
All right. So this meeting is adjourned.